If you are in mental health communities, in psychology communities, you probably heard a lot about benefits of journaling for mental health, for self-development, for achieving your goals, for living a better life, for finding your meanings and values, and also to develop your writing abilities as well. A lot of writers have their journals. Um, However, as I see as a psychologist working with people, usually people tend to keep two kinds of journals. First kind is kind of just marking down the events of the day, and the second kind is venting, so writing down different emotions. And both of those kinds of journaling are okay, but there are many more options you can have. So today I hopefully can give you different inspiration of how you can use your journal for improving your mental health, achieving successes that you want, or maybe understanding yourself better, understanding others better, and so on. So let's begin. So first kind of journaling is venting journaling. We already discussed it. It's basically when you write whatever you want, whatever comes to your mind when, for example, you feel upset or emotional about something. Like you had an argument and you take your journal and just write out all of your emotions, all of your feelings about it. And this kind of journaling is the most common, as I said, but also there is a bit of danger in this journal, because if you do it on your own without like professional help and professional insight, then you might be just making yourself more upset if you're rewriting those upsetting thoughts and kind of catastrophizing and exaggerating things. So be careful with this kind of journaling if you know you're prone for negative thinking, catastrophizing, maybe maximizing the negative outlook on things. However, if you add just one element to this, then it will be a reflective journal. So type number 2 is a reflective journal. For example, you write down everything that you feel, all the emotions, all the thoughts that appear, all the things going on inside you. And then when you have come down, you just ask yourself, what do I think about what I wrote? You reread it and you pay attention, what do you see in there? And sometimes you can see a lot of things that you were not aware of. Like, for example, now that I have come down and I reread those thoughts, I realize that there is quite a lot of catastrophizing, or that I really see the situations in twisted way when I'm upset. Now, for example, you have an argument with your partner and you write in your journal how they don't love you, how they don't care about you, and so on. And then you reread it and you realize, oh, actually, I had those fears coming up, right? So probably those fears are my attachment wounds, right? So you can kind of reflect on what you wrote before and analyze yourself, analyze what kind of patterns you see, what kind of fears you see coming up again and again and again. And then if you see such things coming up again and again, it's probably wise to go to therapy with those, because probably there are some trauma or attachment fear or something else going on. Or for example, you notice your way of thinking in those moments and you realize, like, okay, when I'm upset, I don't think straight. I shouldn't be taking decisions when I'm upset. So number 2 is a reflective journal. And reflective journal doesn't have to be reflections about your emotions. It can also be reflections just about any entry of the journal, because what we write about and what we don't write about says a lot about us. Like, for example, you go to see your friends, and in your journal, you write not so much about the conversations or the friends, but you write a lot about your own feelings or nature around you. So it can say something about you, that for some reason you don't pay so much attention to other people and you are more focused on yourself and on the world around you, on nature, for example, on beauty. It doesn't have to be problematic. Like, maybe it's just your values. You value beautiful nature and you value introspection. Or it can be a sign of maybe being too focused on yourself and not focused enough on others. And the same can happen vice versa, right? You, for example, write a lot about other people and not that much about yourself. It can tell you something about yourself. So we cannot possibly write everything that is happening to us during even 1 hour, right? There are so many things we see, so many sensations we have, so many smells and textures and everything. So things that we choose to write down say something about us, and things that we choose to ignore also say something about us. So here, when you write self-reflection, you can focus maybe on what kind of values do things that you write say show about yourself. Like, for example, do you value other people, or do you value nature more, or do you value beauty more, or do you value your own introspection more? It can also say, like, what do you tend to pay attention to? Like, for example, if you write a lot about negative things and ignore all the positive things in your journal, then maybe you are too focused on the negative. On the contrary, if you only write about, oh, everything is wonderful and joyful, then it can also signal avoidance. For example, Emperor of Russia Nikolai II, during the revolution, he was writing in his journal about shapes of the clouds, kind of ignoring the whole scary situation he was in and focusing on beautiful clouds. Um, of course, so it's like an example, right? It's a bit funny, but a reflective journal helps you analyze what you wrote before that, and then notice patterns, notice what is important for you, notice things about yourself and others as well. And this reflective type, you can basically unite it with any other types of the journal that I will be talking after that. So you can reflect basically on anything. So this is a universal tool, very, very useful. Third kind of journaling is metaphoric journaling. And this is more when you go into your subconscious mind in a way. So you sit down, usually I recommend taking some kind of time limit, like for example, 15 minutes, right, or 20 minutes, whatever is more comfortable for you. And you just write whatever comes to your mind in metaphoric ways. Like, for example, you write a story about a rabbit and his life, or you write about sun and his life, or you write about a game of chess, and you just let your mind be free and not try to make it logical, not try to make it make sense, not try to make it personal about yourself. It can be just completely abstract writing, right? Not related to your life at all. And then it's very interesting to combine this with self-reflection and to reread it and think, what does this say about me? Like, this writing, what does it show about myself? And often this kind of writing, metaphoric kind of writing, makes you feel deeply understood, because when we try to express ourselves in very kind of simplified words, like, oh, I feel sad, or I feel depressed, or I feel jealous, or something else, right? If it's very simple words, then we don't see all the nuances, we don't feel all the shades of that inner experience. But if we write in this metaphoric way, often those shades, they come up there. Often we see that our sadness is actually multifaceted, that it's actually very rich, very interesting, and that there are past experiences coming up, and hopes and dreams, and different symbols coming up in metaphoric writing. So I really recommend trying out this one. For me personally, it's my favorite one. And then you can, of course, unite it with reflective part and reflect, what does it say about me? What do I think it means? And it's a little bit similar to art therapy, right? When you draw something and then you look at it and think, what does it show? What is represented in this painting? It's the same, but in writing form. And often when we separate it from ourselves, when we write about other people or animals or objects or something like that, then it's unrestricted by criticism or psychological defenses, right? There we can see reality better, paradoxically, in metaphoric form. Fourth type of journaling that can be useful is journaling about alternative stories. This is a very frequent method that is used in narrative therapy, narrative practice. Basically, the meaning of that is that each of us has some stories that are dominant in our life. Like, for example, if you have this idea that I am not athletic, right? And you remember all those stories that prove this idea, that you remember your physical education classes in school, you remember, I don't know, somebody bullying you for that, and you remember your family not being athletic, like all the stories that contribute to this idea. But oftentimes our life is much more rich than that. Oftentimes we have alternative stories. Stories for when you did actually show some athleticism. Like, for example, you really, really loved going for long walks, or you really, really loved riding your bicycle, or maybe you really, really loved feeling contact with your body, or maybe you really loved watching something related to body connection, body sensation, right? So you find all those alternative stories and you write them down in this journal. Alternative stories can also consider something, can also refer to people. Like, for example, you are used to people mistreating you, and you grew up with parents or guardians or siblings or teachers who were traumatizing you. So here the alternative stories would be to write about people who treated you well, people who respected you, people who showed that you are valuable. Oftentimes those people, positive influences, they remain kind of unnoticed by ourselves. Often we focus on the problematic stories, but we don't notice all those powerful positive stories. And they don't have to be something huge, right? Like, I don't know, maybe you had a teacher who believed in you and who complimented your capacity in something or your efficacy in something. So you can write about that teacher, right? Or maybe you had some book characters with whom you could relate and who inspired you, and reading those books you felt like you're worthy, right? Or maybe you have your favorite writer or your favorite music. You can also write about them. They're also part of our alternative stories. So the main principle is that you write those stories that do not fit in your problematic story. Like, maybe your problematic story is that I am selfish, so you write down all the stories that do not fit into that. Or maybe your problematic story is that I'm ugly or unattractive. You write down all the stories where you felt not ugly. Or maybe your problematic story is that other people are dangerous and they abuse me and they hurt me, and you write down all the stories where other people were actually good to you, right? And it's not in order to disprove the original idea, it's to strengthen the alternative idea. These alternative ideas can also include stories about your mastery, about your strengths, about things that you are good at. Oftentimes we focus too much on the negative, like things that we failed at and so on. But those alternative stories can show us, oh, I was good in this and this and this and that. I especially recommend this exercise for alternative stories for people who had some kind of complex trauma, repeated trauma in childhood, because oftentimes they really find a lot of relief, a lot of support, finding those stones on which they can step and find their balance. Stories where they were strong, stories where they were competent, stories where they felt worthy. Maybe not completely competent, completely strong, but maybe a little bit more worthy and strong than usual. So, fourth type, alternative stories journal. And a division of fourth type is alternative people journal, or members of your life club, let's say. People who showed you respect, love, and care, who maybe didn't say it out loud but showed it in their actions. Maybe it was something small, but it's very important when you note it, you start remembering it, and it starts acting as a support for yourself. Type of journaling number 5 is different subjects, different topic, different specific purpose journals. So, for example, if you have a certain goal, like maybe you want to lead a healthier lifestyle, maybe you want to work on your anxiety, maybe you want to have a gratitude journal, maybe you want to have a journal where you note down all your achievements, for example, during the day, even like small things. Each of those are like examples of one purpose journal. And I really like this idea because it allows you to focus on what you want, and you can of course combine it with other types as well. So for example, if you have a goal, let's say to overcome your shopping addiction, then you can have a specific journal for that, where you write down your experiences with this, maybe how you got there, the story of this addiction. Maybe you write down your strengths that helped you. Maybe you write down patterns that led you into this addiction. Maybe you also go into therapy about it and you write down different conclusions that you realized, like insights that you had in therapy on this topic, right? So, and the whole journal is specifically targeted on this subject, right? It can be the same for any goal that you have, any issue that you're working in, on any pattern that you want to change. So very good type of journaling, and you can combine it with others. Oftentimes when I notice is that what I notice is that people have some kind of goal, or they want to change something, but they don't really pay enough attention. They don't really give time to actually reflect on the thing, and then they prematurely say, oh, I failed it, or I didn't achieve it again. But this journal, giving space, giving time, having like a big notebook where you write on specifically this topic, gives you the necessary space and time to reflect on it and to actually implement change and to take it seriously. Basically, a lot of the times we don't take seriously our things. We think they are too small. It can even be a journal of some kind of life change, like I don't know, maybe you want to start exercising and you notice there is a lot of psychological barriers to that, so you can journal about this, and it can be specifically for changing your life towards more exercising. So this was number 5, specific goal, specific purpose journal. It can be also gratitude journal, something like that. Journaling type number 6 is inner child journal. It's a very kind of fun exercise for creative journaling. For example, you can write as if from the part of your inner child, right? And write your wants and feelings and desires and so on. And you don't have to make it perfect. It can be childish, it can be some stupid phrases, it can be lots of stickers, it can be drawings or doodling in there. You can also try writing with your non-dominant hand. For example, usually you write with right hand and you write with left hand instead, so you connect with this kind of clumsy way of writing. And it doesn't have to be inner child, it can be any part of yourself with which you want to connect. For example, you have a creative part of yourself. So when you write in this journal, you kind of become this creative part and you write from their name, from their voice. Or it can be your inner critic journal, right? You write as if from your inner critic. Or it can be some other part that you name yourself, right? It doesn't have to be just those parts. Like maybe you have a part that is called, I don't know, like an inventor, right? Or maybe you have a part who is called I don't know, an attention seeking part, and you write from that part. Anything you want. So you choose some kind of part of yourself. Maybe you want to understand this part better, so you write from their point. Or maybe you want to embody this part more because it represent some important values for yourself. Like for example, maybe you have this romantic part or creative part that you want to be more present in your life. So when you journal from this part, you connect with it more and more and more, and it becomes more and more present in your life. Or maybe you need some strength, maybe you need some guidance, and then you get your, I don't know, inner warrior part and then you write from the point of view of this inner warrior part. And this is a very effective journal to activate certain qualities in yourself, certain parts of yourself, certain strengths in yourself. Seventh kind of journaling is journaling in third person. And it's a very useful also exercise when you write about yourself and your own story, as if you are a book character, as if it's not about yourself but about somebody else, right? For example, I would write about myself in third person, like Victoria did that, Victoria wants this, and so on. It's especially, I think, a very cool exercise for writers, because they often think about their characters, like, oh, what this character wants, what kind of lies or illusions they have, what are the truths that they need to discover, what kind of plot they would have, how do they need to internally change to achieve their goals, right? You can take all those principles and all those story structures and story milestones and apply them to yourself and write about yourself in third person. And it can be used in different ways. First way is to write about yourself from third person as your life occurs, kind of describing what is happening to you. And this can be a very useful tool to kind of have an outsider perspective on your life. So, and this can help you notice things that you do not notice when you write from first person viewpoint, right? So, for example, you get this certain level of detachment that helps you see yourself more objectively, maybe a little bit. And then also, another way it can be used for future mapping, and that leads us to the next kind of journal. I'm sorry, I forgot the number, maybe it's seventh or eighth. So this is your desired future you hoped for journal. So you can unite it with the previous type, for example, write in the third person about yourself, or you can use the first person language as you want. And basically what you do, you find out, like, okay, this character, myself, what do they want, what are their desires, what are their hopes, what are their values, what are their dreams, and you write a future for yourself, how you imagine it. Like, for example, if what I wanted realized tomorrow and I wake up, how would I notice it, what would change, how would I feel inside? And you write down and describe what you want, basically. And it's very important to write it on many layers, not just say, oh, I earn this amount of money, right? It's very outside perspective, but write also, how do you feel about it, what changed in you when you do earn that money, or what kind of change happened that you were able to get more income, let's say. But it doesn't have to be about money, it can be about anything. Like, for example, you can write about your future relationship that you want, or you can write about yourself living maybe a healthier lifestyle, or maybe you can write about yourself realizing your creative projects. And encourage you not to just focus on outside goals, but also focus on the inner change. Like, how does this person think, how do they act, how do they feel, what is different compared to yourself now, how did they manage to get there, how did they manage to change so much? And then you can write this story. And this is very, very useful, because oftentimes we pay a lot of attention to what we do not want. And a lot of people who come in therapy, they start saying, I don't want to feel anxious, I don't want to feel depressed, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And they describe everything they don't want. But when you ask them, what do you want instead? Like, how do you want to feel? What do you want to be doing? How do you want to act? How do you want to think about things? Then a lot of people just get, frozen and don't know what to reply, because they didn't give a lot of thought. What do they want instead? And the thing is that if we focus too much on the problem, often it tends to just strengthen itself. So this kind of journaling about your hopes, about your future that you want, helps you imagine in detail what the result that you want looks like. And then it's much easier to get there when you know at least where you're going, right? So number 8, another kind of journal, is a journal of achievements. um, Basically what you write down often is kind of like the opposite of writing a to-do list. When you write a to-do list, you write things that are still not done but need to be done. But when you write about this journal of achievements, you write things that you did do, and they don't have to be some huge achievements. Like, maybe you feel sad and you get out of bed despite it, and you go to for a walk despite feeling sad and despite maybe you don't want it, and it's already a small victory, already an achievement, and you can write it down that today, despite feeling maybe tired or sad, I still went out for a walk because I know it's good for me. Or maybe your journal of achievement could include things that you have done for your mm, job or for your studies, and every day you write down what you did. Extra points if you ask how did I make it happen? What helped me to make it happen? What methods helped me, or what qualities helped me, or what knowledge helped me? And this is very, very useful, very empowering, because then you don't just write down what you managed to do, but you write down how you managed to do it. And then you can use those resources, this knowledge, in other situations. Like, for example, you felt sad and you got out of bed anyway and you went for a walk. Uh, how were you able to do this? And for example, what helped you was knowledge that being depressed and staying in bed doesn't help, that it's good to kind of start moving even if you don't feel like it, but the motivation for moving will come afterwards, right? So maybe the knowledge helped you. Maybe you had previous experience when you were feeling kind of off, and then you still did something nice for yourself and you felt better. So maybe it was previous experience that helped you, or maybe it was example of somebody, like maybe you remember your, I don't know, grandfather who would always be active and always be kind of disciplined on every day of the week, and this is like a good example for yourself. Maybe that's what helped you. Maybe you already have a strong discipline because you were doing, I don't know, professional sports in childhood, so this is what helped you. Maybe you were using some kind of method to get yourself out of bed. For example, you were saying to yourself that let's go, it's so nice outside, we will see those things. So kind of describing nice future for yourself and motivating yourself this way. So you see, there are many things that can help us do things, and when you pay attention to what helps you, it's very valuable. You basically have a whole instrumentary of things that will be helpful in the future. And it's also very empowering, and it boosts your competence and self-efficacy, and you know that you basically have a lot of resources to rely on, a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that help. And number 9, you can have different kinds of journals with other people or about other people. For example, if you're a parent, you can have a journal about your child, writing down their, you know, first steps, or funny things they said, or things that you have done together that you want to remember, and then you can gift this journal to this child years later, right? So I think it's a wonderful idea. Or you can do the same for your couple or for your family. Like, for example, you have a family journal where you write family events, where you note down how the day went, what have you done, what did you cook today, or different things like that. Or you can have a couple journal as well, where you write nice memories that you shared together, things like that. Or friend group journal, also interesting idea. It can be like a positive journal, just writing down positive things, or it can be a journal of working on something. For example, you go to family therapy or couple therapy, and in this journal you write down your insights, you write down what you understood, you write down your home tasks and what you realized during these home tasks. So it can be a tool for therapy as well, and it really can improve the quality of therapy as well. But of course, if both partners want to do that journaling, it's not like one can force the other. And the last 10th type of journal that I wanted to talk about is journal for big life change or for transition. It can be an outside event that forces you to change, like, for example, career change, or you become a parent, or you get into a relationship and it's getting serious, or things like that. Or it can be an inside change. Oftentimes through life we go through episodes of being reborn, like when our old self is no longer serving us as well, when we have changed and evolved, or the outside circumstances have changed significantly. And having a journal specifically for this purpose, for following through this change, for maybe accepting things, maybe changing things, maybe adapting yourself to a certain change, it can be very, very useful. And it's also giving you power and giving you control, which is often things that we kind of lose when we go through this period of turbulence in life, period of change. So for example, if you became retired, you can write a journal of adapting to retirement. It can be your journal of change. Or if you become if you want to change your health habits, right, how you eat or how you exercise, it can also be a change for health journal, right? Or uh, journal of change can be when you decide to change your profession and you decide to develop specific skills, or you realize that you have been, I don't know, a people pleaser and you have a goal to change, to be more assertive in your life. So transition journal or change journal can be about any major inner change or outside change to which you need to adapt. Or maybe you just found out that you have some diagnosis, right, and you need to adapt to that. You need to maybe accept some things or maybe change some things, right? So journal for transition, journal for change, I believe it's very, very useful, especially when you feel kind of helpless. In this way, this journal can become your support system in a way, where you can be in control, where you can reflect what you can change in yourself, what you can change in your habits, what you can change in your life circumstances to adapt to this change. So there are, of course, many, many, many more options of journaling that you can find in this world, and you can create your own types as well. You can unite several of those that I mentioned or find something else entirely. Please feel free to experiment with all this. Um, so yes, those are just several ideas. Please write in the comments what you think about them. Maybe you have your own kind of journaling that you find very, very useful. Please also write it so that other people can see it and get inspired from your comment as well. And I will see you in next videos. Bye bye.